So the first job will be to fit the metalwork for the cooling solution, which we need to do from behind. Yeah. Oh, missed. Let's try that again. Yeah, let's just grab that. There we go. These little puppies go on here. So I'm just doing them finger tight. They don't need to be any tighter than that, to be honest. They are slotted, but yeah. Next bit. Yeah. I can remember how this goes on. Got it. Not sure that's going in. So let's try again. Again, at the moment I'm not particularly tightening them up, just because. A bit of a tweak. Okay. So to be honest, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the processor in, and I'm going to do a quick power up just to make sure that there's no CPU error coming up on the board, because that's the most likely signifier that the board or the CPU is FUBAR. So we've got the processor here. You probably can't read that. That's open. We'll open the little lever. about the processor. Try not to touch anything. Now the processor is polarised, and I think it's polarised round that way because there's two little notches on either side. Drop that in. Then what we do is we just, so there's a little screw just here. You can see, where is it? So this little screw here. You put the little flappy thing underneath it and then you just lever that in. And in theory at least, that pops off and your processor should be in place. So the next job will be to fit the cooling solution, which I shall prepare now. So I'm just going to squirt on the heatsink compound. It doesn't really need to be very much, because otherwise it'll just, which is fortunate because there isn't very much in this tube. Don't want it squirting everywhere. Just spread it around a little bit. I probably need better tube stuff than that. Anyway, that'll probably do it. Got the cooling solution, which is a bit of a beast, and we need to drop that approximately in place. Put the crossbar in. Now, this bit is going to be quite fiddly. He thinks. Okay, that seems to be it. So we just tighten these up. And we'll plug the power lead in, which is a little socket down here. Like so. I probably should have put the memory in first, shouldn't I? Never mind, we'll get that out in a bit. Right, so what I'm going to do next is power it on, basically, and just make sure that the little LED for CPU doesn't come on, because that would indicate a fault. So we've plugged in the power for the CPU, the power for the main board, and the power switch, which you can't see but it's down here. I've plugged it into the power supply, and now I'm going to switch it on and see if any magic smoke comes out, and also whether or not any of these lights in this bottom corner come on. If they do, that would indicate I'm doing something wrong. Let's see. Well, that's a good start. Well, I've got a CPU light on. The cooling fan's going round, which is good. Is that a CPU light? Memory light? Well, that's a memory light. So I can kind of live with a memory light not being on. Hang on, what's going on here? Yeah, okay, so I've got a memory light on, which would indicate that there's something wrong with the memory, which would make sense because I haven't put any memory in it yet. So what we'll do is try and put some memory in and see if that light goes off. So I've obviously messed up a little bit here because I probably should have put the memory in before I put the cooling solution in. So now you're going to get to see me mess around trying to get memory installed underneath this big fan. Where are you? So you've missed the bit of me finishing putting the memory in and cursing a little bit when it didn't work because the SD card got full. However, we are ready to power it on again and we'll see what happens. Nice lights. Press the power button on the motherboard. So we've got these little lights down here which flick on and off. And it does take a little bit of a while, for some reason, to boot. But then it boots. And because I haven't got any hard disks attached as of yet, or SSDs attached, we've just got the BIOS screen. But we are booting, so that's progress. So the next stage will be for me to fit the rest of this heatsink. So there's another fan that goes in the middle there. This fan is running. You wouldn't believe it. It is running. But it is silent, which is great. And then I'm going to fit these little puppies down here, which are the SSDs. Those are just covers for them at the moment. So we're going to get that started in a minute. So like I said, it didn't work, but I think it's worth just sort of talking about why it didn't work and what the issue was, because it's not obvious, or at least it wasn't obvious to me. So what I'd done is I put the memory in and I booted it up, and it was flashing between CPU and DRAM on the error LEDs. Now, as far as I can tell, that means there's a problem with the DRAM or the CPU. That's what the manual certainly suggests. However, that's not the case. What it's actually telling you is reset the BIOS. So I did that. I shorted out. There's a pin down here somewhere. I don't suppose you can focus in on it. And you short that pin out for a couple of seconds and the BIOS is then reset. I then plugged it all back in again and started it up, and then it kept doing strange things. So it would start up, one or more of the lights would come on, and then the power supply would cut out and it would start up again. And this to me is kind of slightly worrying. It seems like a short, somewhere, that the power supply is being overloaded and it shuts itself down. But again, that's not the case. What the motherboard is doing is it's trying to work out what its configuration is. And I just left it for a minute or so while it was going through this process, and then it came up with the boot screen, or rather it came up with the BIOS, because there's no SSDs in yet. So there you go. I've learnt something. Well, what can you say? It's bizarre, and it isn't explained in the documentation that comes with the motherboard. I guess you're just supposed to know that. So this bit's not very exciting, I'm afraid. I'm basically going to take the additional fan, and this one slots into the de-refurking like so. Well, I would do if I... and that provides additional cooling to the fan on the outside. And there's some little clips to plug in. It's not very exciting, I'm afraid. And once we've done this, we'll put the SSDs in as well. And then, once the SSDs are in, we're in a position whereby we can start thinking about mounting it in the case. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Something like that. Something under there. And there's another power fan connector down the bottom there, which is convenient since there's a second fan. And I'll have to worry about cable management later. I should probably tie those up. So the next part is going to be to fit these. Oh, for a magnetic screwdriver at this moment in time. There we go. These are really nice heat sinks. A good solid bit of aluminium. Shame I'm not using them. So these are the SSDs. They're not SATA, as I understand it. They connect directly to the PCI bus. They should be quite pokey. I'm going to be hopefully setting these up as a mirrored pair so that I can back up my operating system and anything else that happens to be on those partitions. Well, we'll see. Which one do I need? Okay, so and again, as before, I'm only doing these up finger tight. There's no need to put too much pressure on them. Okay, in you go, my little friend. There we are. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to plug it all back in and boot up one more time, just to make sure that firstly that this fan's going round, and secondly just to make sure it detects the two SSDs. So on goes the power, and then we press the little power button on the case, and we start, and then it shuts down and it starts. He's complaining about the VGA, but then he would, because there isn't a graphics card in, and it restarts. So this is the process of it configuring itself for its changed circumstances. As I said, this is just very odd from my point of view. I haven't done a build for a few years, and this is strange to me. But here we go. We're now up on the screen. You can see that the BIOS is up. It's not very well focused. When I've put it in the case, we'll get some sort of capture on that, and you can watch me configure the BIOS and stuff. But for now, I think that's good enough. So the next step is to actually mount the motherboard into the case. So the first thing I'm going to do is just visually check where the standoffs are, and I can see from here they are approximately in the same place as the holes for the mountings on the motherboard. So I'm now going to drop the motherboard in and add some of the unscrew it in basically. Ooh, that's a bit close. This is a very snug fit. I always take off the plastic wrapping, and then this needs to go that way a bit. There we go. So I can Okay, we'll get some of the screws in. Magnetic tipped screwdriver, quite useful. So we don't tighten them up all the way, we just put them in so that we can do our thing. Okay, so let's plug in the other bits. So the USB goes in which way? The opposite way to the way I've got the cable, of course. Oops. So this cable's not only quite awkward to get in because of the cooling solution, but it's got to go over there because I don't see any. Is that long enough to go that way? Well, it might be. I guess if I was to care, that would be the way I'd do it that way. Yeah, well, we can worry about that after I've figured out how to get that in there. So the hard disk light goes onto the blue one for some reason, with the plus going on this side. And the switch doesn't really matter because it's not polarised. They're in. Okay, have I forgotten anything? I've got to pull the cables back through for the cooling because they're a bit of a mess, as you can see. You can see down here that the power and the USB 3 are quite neat. The little wires over there are quite neat, although I need to pull the cables back. The CPU power is not neat, but I can sort that out later, I think. And the audio's in, and that just needs a bit of sticking down, I think. So I've actually forgot to add the most important part, which is the speaker. I know, legacy technology and all that. So I'll just fit that into that socket where the other ones are. It's just a little piezoelectric thing. So it's very dark in here, as you can see, but hopefully you can also see that the cabling is reasonably neat. I've got to do something with this lot over here. I kind of suspect that sticky back stuff would probably be in order of some description. I'm not excessively worried about obscuring the expansion ports because I'm not using them. Well, not yet anyway. And the rest of it, well, we'll plug it in and see if the lights come on. HDMI. Power. Not long enough. So, moment of truth. Now it's in the case. So that's the main power switch, and oh, we got a startup beep. And voila! We have a BIOS up on the screen, which is kind of what I expect because the hard disk isn't configured or anything. So really all I've got to do now is stick the lid on and maybe do a bit of tidying of cables, and then we can start doing the actually interesting stuff. Yep, they are going round. They're very quiet. They're all very, very quiet. In fact, I can't hear them over the noise of the old server sitting in the corner. So that's pretty good. That's what I'm aiming for. I will point out at this stage, just look at that heatsink. If I take you down to the side of the case, my God, that clearance is close. I hope the lid fits on. I will do some proper video capture in a bit, but I just thought this is interesting to see the running temperatures of the temperature sensors within the computer, and they're all about, well, they're all 30 degrees or less. That's running cool, and that's exactly what I want. That's one of the reasons why I've over-specified everything. That is really, really close to the glass. There's oops, too much glare. Bring it around here. I don't know if that's any better. Don't think it is. Right, so it's really, really close to the glass. I'm not particularly worried about that. I think it's quite pretty that you can see the big block right next to the glass like that. Okay, so this is the back of the computer now that it's all put together. You can see the nice power supply on the bottom. This is just airflow. The whole inside of the cabinet is open. You can see my power cable there, just floating up there. I still haven't tied that up, but I'll get to it. And you can see one of the reasons why I wanted this particular motherboard was the wonderful connectivity on the back. There's USB 3.2, USB 3.1, USB 3, USB 2. There's even a PS2 keyboard connector at the top there. Some Wi-Fi stuff that I don't know why you'd do that, and 2 network points, which is quite nice. And if we go around to the side, you can see the tempered glass. I haven't actually pulled the plastic off, so let's do that. And that's actually quite pretty, isn't it? And you can see the cooling solution, the Be Quiet cooling solution. That is not running. I haven't switched it on, so I'm going to switch it on, and you'll probably be able to pick up the sound at that point. No, and that's because I haven't switched the power on. Try again. Oh, there you go, see the light came on now. So let's try the power. There we go, it started up. You can see a little error light down the bottom here. Hopefully you heard the beep. I have fitted a small speaker. And I reckon that's probably booted up now. It's quite nice. What's interesting is if I shut up for a minute, you can see the microphone that I'm using just up there, below the incorrect timed clock, and the computer is between me and the microphone, and you can hear me and not the computer. And this was one of the big factors for me in creating this particular computer. So if I carry on around a little bit, you can see that the front panel ports are on the side, and there's also the power button and the restart button. No, that's not a restart button. I think that might be something to do with lights. I'll have to figure that one out. On the top. And the front, the money shot, if you like. Let's get it all the way around. That's it. It's just a monolithic black slab. And I've got to say, that's what sold me on this case. I don't want CD-ROM drives, I don't want any of this sort of lights and stuff on the front. Just a straightforward block of metal. It's fantastic. And I didn't notice that before, but it's actually illuminating down there for some reason, somehow. Not entirely sure why, but there we go. So now this is, oh look, you can see the fans going around. It's not going around particularly fast. As I said previously, who's that handsome chap? As I said previously, the processor is not getting warm, but then I'm not putting under any pressure at the moment at all. And we'll see what happens when I start asking it to do stuff and what the temperatures I get like. So the next so this is probably the last of the videos with a camera. The next one will be sort of screen grabbing from the BIOS as I set up the BIOS and try and get these two little NVMe PCIe storage devices set up as a mirror set, which I don't know how to do, so that will be quite fun. Oh, look at that. Infinite loop.